Injuries and accidents are among the reasons why bodybuilding or sport in general is a risky profession, as one unfortunate incident can endanger an athlete's entire career and livelihood. In today's material, I will present exactly the kind of examples where an injury suffered during training or outside of training caused or contributed to the end of an athlete's career. Let's start with the most spectacular example, which was the reason for drawing attention to this topic and which is the undisputed frontrunner among the terms injuries and career endings. Jean-Pierre Fux, the Swiss giant, never won a competition as a professional, but he remains recognizable as one of the mass monsters of the 90s due to the size he brought to the stage. His best result at Mr. Olympia was 7th place in 1997 and 4th place at the Arnold Classic in 1998. After that, his positions began to worsen and his physique began to deteriorate, mainly because of his growing waist. The famous incident, on the other hand, occurred in 2002, so to speak, fortunately for Fux, after the great moments of his career. It should be noted that he was 34 years old at the time, so he still had a potentially long career ahead of him. This happened during a photo shoot for Flex magazine, and the man responsible for the photos, as Dave Palumbo recalled in an interview with Jean-Pierre Fux, loved to put huge weights in the hands of the bodybuilders so that the photos would be as impressive as possible. This was the case again this time, with the Swiss athlete shouldering 300 kilograms. Interestingly, Fux did not consider this an excessive burden and, as he himself said, had completed series with this weight in his training a week earlier without any problems. In addition, the filming was completed as planned and did not start until Fux left the set. He was then called back because the Flex representatives wanted to change the lighting. But about 5 minutes had passed since the last repetition, the training room had cooled down, and Fux immediately reached for the 300 kilograms without warming up again. Here is his quote from an interview with Dave Palumbo. "For some reason, when I lifted the bar, it was the heaviest weight I'd ever had on my shoulders. It was a completely different feeling from what I usually have. I started to lower myself, and when I reached a 90-degree angle, I knew exactly what had happened. As if in slow motion, I felt my quadriceps in my left leg tear. All the weight then shifted to my right side, and there were no safety supports that could simply stop the barbell. Instead, my right leg began to twist, and my kneecap was injured. When the doctor later opened the knee, he said, 'I've been doing this for more than 10 years and I've never seen anything like it. It looks like a bomb has exploded in your right knee.' Finally, his right leg has not fully recovered after the treatment, and even when walking, he has to move it with a jerky hip movement. You would expect that after such an injury, Jean-Pierre would not even think about being on stage again. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. He was still under contract at the time and received an offer to return for a 6-figure salary. The motivation was enough, and the Swiss took up training again. What's more, he started training his legs again, although he had to spend 3 to 4 days with a physiotherapist after each training session to repair his knees. He took part in the Night of Champions, where he didn't get a placement, but he still took part in photo shoots and guest appearances for some time, and it was only the subsequent rupture of the biceps femoris that made him give up bodybuilding. An even more abrupt career setback was experienced by Steve Michalik, who was not only a great bodybuilder and Mr. Universe title winner, but also terrified those around him. He was known for the fact that a glance at him during training ended with you waking up outside the gym door, surrounded by your own blood. The following story about his almost crazy attitude towards bodybuilding is well known. A young man approached him between sets and said he wanted to be like him, Steve Michalik, Mr. America, and Mr. Universe. When asked how badly he wanted it, he replied that he was willing to give his life for such a body. Michalik replied that he would most likely have to achieve it and arranged to meet him at the beach the next day. When asked what they would do, Steve replied, "We'll go swimming." He grabbed the boy and started dragging him towards the sea. There he grabbed him by the head, plunged him into the water, and held his panicking, thrashing body for 30 or 40 seconds. Then he let him resurface, let him take a breath, and plunged him under again, this time waiting until the last air bubbles had risen to the surface. Then he dragged him out of the sea, threw him onto the beach, and said to the boy, who was heroically catching his breath, "When you want that title as much as you wanted that damn last breath, then and only then can you come and talk to me." Michalik's biography was full of such events and is, one could say, a ready-made script for an exciting film. Let me know in the comments if you want to learn more about this bodybuilder's biography in a separate material. After his victory at Mr. Universe in 1975, Steve began training like a maniac for the upcoming Mr. Olympia to dethrone the then reigning Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was known for doing 70 reps per set and for training sessions that lasted 7 hours each. On his way to the plane for the Mr. Olympia, a truck driver avoided looking in the mirrors, swerved into the lane in which Michalik was driving, and ran over the roof of his Mustang. He was pulled out of the wrecked car for 2 hours. It later turned out that he had 4 damaged discs and a severed sciatic nerve and was completely paralyzed from the waist down. He was told that he would never walk again, but that the pain would be much less after several surgeries. He then kindly asked the doctor who said this to leave the room. During his months of hospitalization, he refused to take his medication and took testosterone that he had in a bag with him at the time of the accident. As he later said, it was the only time in his life that steroids had helped him and speeded up his recovery. After a while, he regained enough feeling in one leg to be able to pretend to stand on 2 legs and was released home to continue his treatment. In the meantime, he received a phone call telling him that his part in the film Pumping Iron had been taken out. In 1978, he returned to the gym and trained his upper body. He still had almost no feeling in his legs, but this soon changed, and in 1980 he was back on stage, making an unannounced guest appearance at the end of a Grand Prix competition. He showed off his 86-centimeter thighs to an enthusiastic audience. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was commentating on the event, made no secret of his surprise. "I can't believe what I'm seeing. That's Steve Michalik, the Phantom Bodybuilder." A much less dramatic circumstance, but one that had just as much impact on his career, concerned Dorian Yates. While preparing for the Mr. Olympia in 1997, 3 weeks before the competition, he suffered a severe tear in his triceps, which was literally held together by a single tendon thread. Any blow to that area, or even a sudden movement and muscle tension during posing, could have caused a complete tear. The injury not only affected Yates' behavior on stage, but also prevented him from preparing adequately for the competition, which he was nevertheless able to win. Shortly after the competition, however, he realized that it wasn't just a cosmetic imperfection, but was affecting his ability to train. Unlike previous injuries, such as a torn bicep in 1994, this injury meant he couldn't train the way he needed to in order to compete with the best in the world. If he hadn't suffered that injury, would he have reappeared in 1998, and could we have seen his big clash with Ronnie Coleman? Yates did not rule out this possibility, but pointed out that he was beginning to feel exhausted by this point. These were just 3 of many similar cases. Feel free to suggest names for a possible second part in the comments. That was Steel Shock. See you in the next video.